Kwite has responded. Now, a couple weeks ago, a Twitter user by the name of Orion would make this tweet longer, claiming that Kwite had probably done one of the worst things that you can do to another human being. And over the course of the next 24 hours, Kwite would essentially be canceled. He would lose over 50,000 subscribers, and thousands of people on Twitter would demand a response from Kwite, with many people going to his Discord server and his Discord mods appearing to be silencing what everyone at the time thought was a victim. A few days later, Kwite would post this response in his Discord saying that he would be responding to these claims in a few days. Now, it took Kwite a bit longer than a few days, and a lot of people just kind of assumed that that was more proof of his guilt. In the meantime, though, Orion would show some very suspicious behavior and would begin blocking anyone that asked for proof of what had happened. And they made several posts saying that they had more evidence, but for some reason didn't want to share it. And this old interview with Orion from 2018 would resurface. Now, I'll admit, when I first saw this video, I actually took this as confirmation of Orion's story. However, if you actually watch this interview that happened like a few days after this alleged R incident, they don't bring it up whatsoever, and they seem to kind of have this positive view of Kwite. This doesn't really seem like something a victim would say days after getting assaulted.
Cut to February, where we met up for the second time, and I remember it was February because we went to see Black Panther. It was fun, and I distinctly remember him getting out of my car, but stopping midway and saying, "Just remember, I really care about you," and then closing the door, which made me feel really good because, you know, this was my best friend. We had met up for the second time. He still cares about me.
And yesterday, Kwite would release this over 1.5 hour response that I would say more than vindicates him. In fact, showcases that he was actually the victim in this entire situation, and it's actually Orion who was the victimizer here. Now, obviously, I can't go everything that was said in this video, but basically he just kind of goes through Orion's like twit longer and essentially just disproves like everything that Orion says and goes over the complete backstory of how they met and how they became friends. And he kind of paints this picture of Orion as this kind of manipulative person that just wasn't a really good person to be around or to be friends with. And so Kwite had cut them off years ago. However, over the course of the last few years, Orion has tried numerous times to basically ruin Kwite's career, and has even gone out of their way to befriend people who didn't like Kwite. And basically everything that this Orion person has done has essentially proven that Kwite was right to cut this person out of his life. Now, one of the biggest claims in Orion's document was that Kwite had been transphobic towards them. However, Kwite proves that this is far from the truth. And in fact, it was Orion who had been transphobic towards himself during a dysphoric episode, and Kwite, being a good friend, tried to talk Orion down and was being quite supportive, honestly. And he just pokes a lot of holes in some of the weird claims that Orion had made, that like Orion came up with Kwite's Sona. However, Kwite had worn the glasses in the green jacket years before he had even met Orion. And he even gets extremely personal in this video and talks about how he himself has actually been assaulted at some point, and says that he's a virgin. He's never had sex before, which just makes this allegation even worse. And in fact says that he wasn't the one that was being pushy in this relationship. It was actually Orion who was pushing Kwite's boundaries. Kwite even addresses the Slazo drama that happened a few years back, where something similar happened to his his friend Slazo, where a group of people rallied against this accuser who turned out to be lying the entire time and made up this fake story against Slazo, and Slazo's career was basically ruined because of that. Kwite was one of the people who was a part of that group, essentially.
My abuser took advantage of the aggressively sympathetic and viral way the internet typically reacts to rape allegations to continue tormenting me. A lot of people have brought up the Slazo situation from back in 2019 during this whole thing, saying that it's ironic I was part of pushing those allegations and now I'm suffering my own, like it's karma coming around. And I mean, on some level, I can't really say they're wrong. It's because I saw Slazo as a friend that how I handled those allegations wasn't good enough. I failed him as a friend by believing what I saw wholesale and not doing the bare minimum of what he deserved, by not even waiting for him to give his side before making a judgment. An event that has now echoed itself in my life. I have felt guilty that he suffered like that, at least in part because of my negligence ever since, and now I can directly relate to him after going through all this shit. I feel like I owe that guy a third apology, and still nothing I do will make up entirely for what I helped put him through.
And this is a really heartfelt and genuine apology to Slazo, because I mean, now the guy knows how it feels himself, and I'd assume that it's not great. It's not a good feeling to be falsely accused of something like this. And to end off his response, he says that he may consider quitting YouTube after all this, because he didn't want to unmask like this, right? He wanted to be faceless. He wanted to continue living a normal life, and he wanted to do YouTube on the side. But now he's been forced to get personal. He's been forced to reveal all this personal stuff about him. He's been forced to reveal his face, which is something that he didn't want to do. And because of Orion making up these allegations, essentially forced him to reveal all this stuff that he didn't want to. And I'd say this video does a pretty good job at showing the true nature of this Orion person. It seems like they are very manipulative, vindictive, and I'm just gonna say they need some serious help, okay? Because after Kwite posted this video, they went to Twitter, because of course they did. And the first thing they said was, oh, I'm not gonna respond to this yet. It's too long. And then they posted proof, right? They finally posted the proof that they'd been holding off for weeks at this point. And it was basically this doctor's statement that said, oh, they do have PTSD due to an alleged assault that had happened in 2018. However, many people would point out that this document had typos in it, and it looks fake. And I wouldn't put it past Orion to fake something like this, considering all this other stuff that they've done. Now, I do want to end off this video by saying that this is in no way indicative of what happens in real life. Most likely, if someone is coming to you, or a friend is coming out, someone you know is coming out and claiming that someone else did something like this, believe them. Most likely they are telling the truth. And it's unfortunate that people like Orion just kind of ruin actual victims' credibility and chances of being taken seriously. Kwite said it best himself, right? It's good to believe victims. However, you should always verify. Anyway, these are just my thoughts on this entire situation. If you guys have enjoyed, be sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe to the channel.